At exactly 2:14 a.m., the motion sensor in the living room tripped. 2 minutes later, at 2:16, my 10-year-old son, still half asleep but trained for this exact moment, slammed the panic button under his bed, just like we'd practiced. By 2:19, police officers had Brenda Sterling in handcuffs, tangled up in my blackout curtains and screaming about emergency code compliance inspections. She'd broken in through the small, unlocked laundry room window. Her reason, she claimed, with unnerving seriousness, that she had a hunch about unsanctioned LED bulbs. My name's Arthur Mitchell. I'm a widower and work in IT support for a regional bank. I don't host neighborhood barbecues, don't linger at mailboxes for small talk. And I definitely don't mow my lawn every 3 days, like the Pinecrest HOA handbook passive-aggressively suggests. My home is quiet, private, and simple. It's just me and my 10-year-old son Leo, living our lives. And apparently, that made us the perfect target for Brenda Sterling, the self-proclaimed property aesthetics coordinator of Pinecrest. In her mind, our porch light, mailbox, and even our silence somehow threatened community values. It all began with notices slipped under my door at random hours. First came a warning about a non-compliant decorative gnome, which was actually just a leftover Halloween skull I'd forgotten to put away. Then came a $75 fine for unauthorized solar pathway lighting. The kicker, those lights had been there since I bought the house 5 years ago, but Brenda insisted they violated subsection 12.4 of a lighting ordinance she had personally written just last month. She once rang my doorbell at 6:42 a.m. on a Saturday, lecturing me in her most indignant tone about what she called seasonally ambiguous wreaths. The wreath in question was a simple eucalyptus circle my late wife had made years ago. Another time, she tried to march into my backyard, insisting she needed to measure the grass blades for compliance. When I told her to leave, she puffed up like a peacock and announced she'd return with proper documentation. Neighbors often spotted her crouched behind her hibiscus bushes, clutching a clipboard and binoculars, whispering frantically into a walkie-talkie she claimed was directly linked to code enforcement. Later, the actual code enforcement office confirmed they'd never heard of her and definitely hadn't issued her any kind of radio. Then came the late-night incidents that made me realize this wasn't just neighborhood drama anymore. It was harassment. My trash cans started getting knocked over every Tuesday night, spilling garbage all over my driveway. My security camera cable was sliced clean through, likely with garden shears. That was my breaking point. I upgraded everything, silent alarms on every door and window, infrared cameras with cloud backup, and most importantly, kid-level panic buttons in Leo's room in the hallway. I taught him exactly what to do if anyone ever came into our home uninvited. Hit the button, lock the bedroom door, and hide in the closet. We practiced twice a week until it became instinct. Brenda's behavior only got worse after I refused to attend her so-called mandatory neighborhood beautification seminar. She began showing up at odd hours, measuring my mailbox height at 11 p.m., snapping photos of my garbage bins from multiple angles at dawn. One afternoon, she even followed Leo home from the bus stop, claiming she needed to inspect his backpack for contraband gum. That was when I filed my first police report. But the officer said that unless she actually trespassed, there wasn't much they could do. Then came the night everything changed. It started out like any other. I put Leo to bed at 9:30 p.m., checked every lock twice, and sat down to finish a few work emails. Around midnight, I could hear Brenda's voice through the wall, ranting on the phone about the criminal lack of HOA enforcement in our community. I should have known she was gearing up for something. By 2 a.m., I was sound asleep, completely, unaware that Brenda had decided she couldn't rest until she confirmed whether I was using an unapproved brand of laundry detergent. She actually told that to the police later, dressed head to toe in black, which she later described as her standard inspection attire. Brenda crept toward my house carrying a flashlight, a laminated HOA rulebook, and a digital camera to document what she called inevitable violations. She tried the front door first, then tested each window along the side of the house. The laundry room window, unlocked after I'd aired it out earlier that day, became her entry point. She wriggled through like a determined raccoon on a mission, knocking over a bottle of fabric softener as she went. The motion sensor in the living room caught her immediately, sending an alert to my phone. But before I even processed what was happening, Leo had already sprung into action. Ever since the backpack incident, he'd been on edge. The moment he heard the soft beep of the motion detector, a distinct sound he knew by heart, he hit that panic button without hesitation. The silent alarm instantly notified the police using our preset code for home invasion. I sprinted down the hall to Leo's room, heart hammering, praying he was safe and locked in. Through the door, I spoke in the calmest voice I could manage. "You did everything right, buddy. Stay put, okay?" He whispered back a shaky, "Okay, Dad." I pulled out my phone and switched to the live security feed. There she was, Brenda Sterling, creeping through my living room with a flashlight, snapping photos of my coffee table magazines and muttering about unapproved reading materials. She drifted toward the kitchen, opened my refrigerator, and started photographing the contents like some deranged food inspector, making disgusted noises about my nano-organic milk. For minutes and 12 seconds after the silent alarm had gone off, the police arrived. I unlocked the front door just in time for them to burst in, weapons drawn, shouting for the intruder to show herself. Brenda froze, then panicked. She darted behind my blackout curtains, only to get hopelessly tangled in the fabric. The officers yanked her free as she screamed at the top of her lungs that this was an emergency code compliance inspection, and that she had full authority to be there. She even waved her laminated HOA rulebook, like it was some kind of federal warrant. Once the officers realized she wasn't your average burglar, but an HOA board member gone rogue, they called for a supervisor and started taking statements. Brenda kept insisting she had implied consent to enter any property within HOA boundaries for inspection purposes. The senior officer, barely hiding his disbelief, explained that HOA rules don't override criminal law, and breaking and entering is still a felony. No matter how many bylaws she'd printed out, she argued, her voice shaking but defiant, that she was protecting property values and upholding neighborhood standards. The investigation, when the dust settled, the investigation revealed this wasn't her first stunt. Brenda had done the same thing to 3 other families in the neighborhood. The Johnsons reported strange footprints in their garden and missing porch photos. The twins down the block found their shed doors mysteriously open several mornings in a row. And poor old Mr. Henderson had actually caught Brenda in his garage, but assumed it was just his medication playing tricks on him. No one had camera footage until me. I had everything, crystal clear, cloud-backed HD video showing her creeping around my home, testing windows, crawling through the laundry room, and snapping pictures of what she called evidence of non-compliance. My lawyer, whom I hired the next morning, called it the most thorough documentation of a break-in he'd ever seen. He even laughed out loud watching the part where she got tangled in the curtains. The media, it didn't take long for the story to blow up. Within 48 hours, local news ran the footage under the headline, "HOA President or Unhinged Trespasser." The clip of Brenda screaming, "This is my jurisdiction," while wrapped in my curtains, went viral overnight. Someone even turned it into a TikTok sound. Over 3 million uses in the first week. Her mugshot, featuring her perfectly styled hair turned into a bird's nest from the curtain fight, became a meme template for entitled people facing consequences. The HOA board scrambled to respond, calling an emergency meeting 2 days after her arrest. Over 200 residents packed the community hall, demanding Brenda's removal and the abolishment of her 23-page amendment to the neighborhood guidelines. The vote was unanimous, except for Brenda's husband, who abstained, staring silently at the floor. That night, the HOA officially disbanded. Property values even went up afterward. Buyers apparently loved the no HOA status. The trial Brenda's legal troubles were only just beginning. She faced multiple charges: breaking and entering, criminal trespass, unlawful surveillance, and endangerment of a minor, since Leo had been inside during her intrusion. Her lawyer tried to claim she suffered from diminished capacity, brought on by her obsession with neighborhood order, but the judge didn't buy a word of it. Between the security footage, the evidence of her prior break-ins, and her complete lack of remorse, the case was airtight. The trial lasted 3 days. Brenda took the stand, delivering a 40-minute ramble about how she was a hero, saving the community from chaos. She compared herself to a neighborhood watch volunteer and accused everyone else of not caring enough. The prosecutor simply played the video of her photographing my refrigerator at 2:15 a.m., then rested his case. Leo testified remotely via closed-circuit video. Calm and brave, he explained how he heard the motion sensor beep, hit the panic button like we practiced, and hid in his closet until I told him it was safe. Several jurors visibly frowned when he described his nightmares, the same ones that started after. Brenda followed him home from the bus stop, sentencing. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a verdict: guilty on all counts. During sentencing, the judge made it clear how seriously he took her actions. The trauma to the families, the fear she caused a child, and her utter refusal to take responsibility. He sentenced her to 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, and $15,000 in restitution. When she heard the sentence, Brenda's jaw fell open. She turned to her lawyer and whispered loudly enough for the whole courtroom to hear, "This can't be happening. I have a neighborhood standards committee meeting next week." The judge wasn't amused. He added a permanent restraining order, banning her from coming within 500 feet of my home or Leo's school. Then came the final blow. She was forbidden for life from holding any position in any HOA, neighborhood association, or similar organization in the state. Brenda gasped, gripping the defense table for balance, her face turning the same furious shade of red as the non-compliant roses she'd once fined the Johnsons for planting.